we need to be taking this to the front steps of these insurance CEOs' houses, because the oil and gas expansion that's happening in communities is happening right next door to people that are living through the impacts on their air, on their water, and on their lives every day. And so at RAN decide to make protest personal for the folks that are making decisions at these corporations.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the RAN Wrap-Up, Rainforest Action Network's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly in news from around the world affecting the climate and all those that depend on it. As always, we're taking a look this week at the issues that will ultimately affect all of us, what we can do about it, and what we are doing about it here at Rainforest Action Network. So I'm not sure it's been mentioned before, but we are doing this show in seasons, and this is season 1, and it is about to come to a close. I know you're upset. I think we only have maybe a couple more episodes before we take a break, and who knows what will happen in season 2. We could introduce a villain arc, maybe a surprise guest host. There could be a writer strike, and obviously we aren't scabs around here, so who knows when it would start, but we'll have to wait and see. In episode 3, we talked with the director of our organizing department, Scott Parkin, and he cryptically told us about some big protests headed to the Bay Area in November. And now that we're getting close, we're hearing more details about both the plans and the target. The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Summit, and the related CEO Summit, which sounds like a blast, with over 1,200 global corporate CEOs, including the CEOs of General Motors, Exxon, Chevron, Citibank, and big tech companies. We're talking over 20 heads of state, including President Joe Biden, and 30,000 lobbyists, corporate execs, and international media attendees. It sounds like a real party. That's why they'll be negotiating trade deals that cover 60% of global energy systems and impact some of the most climate vulnerable areas of the world. We're talking the climate crisis, the global economy, human rights, workers' rights, and so many more issues that will ultimately have lasting impacts for decades to come. It sounds a bit overwhelming, but as always, we have a way for you to get involved and take action. It's a big ask, but first, head on over to the link in the show notes and sign the Pledge of Resistance to APEC. This will get you regular updates on how you can be more involved. Second, get to San Francisco, California on November 15th and join our friends at Oil and Gas Action Network, Rising Tide, and others to take to the streets. Protest, speak up, take action, whatever you feel comfy doing, yeah, you should go and do it. And that way we can send a clear message that our voices matter. Okay, I want to talk to you about one of my personal favorite things we do at RAN. And instead of me just telling you, let's talk to Mary Lovell, our energy finance campaigner, to dish the dirt. Hello and welcome, Mary. Thanks so much for being here with us. I'm excited to be talking to you today. Can you tell us who you are and what do you do at Rainforest Action Network?
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Mary Lovell. I use she or they pronouns, and I'm based across the water from Seattle, Washington. I work at RAN on the insurance campaign, and so we pressure the insurance industry to drop oil and gas and coal. So that means going after household names like Liberty Mutual, AIG, Chubb, all sorts of different insurers to get them to drop oil and gas.
Awesome. Truth be told, the insurance campaign is one of my favorite things to do at RAN. I think it's smart, it's strategic, it's a fun, secondary target. And I think it's a great way to make change really quickly because you're protesting against companies I feel like aren't quite used to getting protests or not quite sure what's going on. And hopefully you can move them really quickly. Can you talk a little bit about what's the broad overarching strategy of this insurance campaign? How does it work?
So if you think about any major pipeline, any coal mine, any project that local communities are fighting because of the impacts on their climate, air, water, all of those projects need insurance. The same way that you need insurance to be able to drive your car, to own a house, these same facilities are not allowed to operate without insurance. And so we see it as a key pillar that's holding up the fossil fuel industry. So we work to erode the social license to be able to do that. So we pressure these companies to be able to restrict their insurance for things like coal tar sands, the worst of the worst in oil and gas.
So some of these insurance companies, I'm sure people recognize, we may have given these companies money because, we are insured to them. What happens to all that money? Like, what does it kind of trickle up to?
So when you pay your car insurance, your home insurance, any type of interaction that you have paying an insurance company, they take that money and invest it. And so a major part of their investments is fossil fuels. They are taking the money that they make on top of the covering your risk for your home, and they just take it and invest it into the oil and gas that's causing all of the hurricanes and causing all of the global climate crises. Basically, they have a giant pile of money that they've taken from the everyday consumer and can invest in whatever they want. We're pushing them to stop investing in fossil fuels as well as to stop insuring fossil fuels.
You mentioned a few insurance companies already. Are there specifics that we at RAN are targeting, and why are we targeting those specifically?
Liberty Mutual has been one of the targets that RAN has worked on for years now. The reason why we focus on Liberty Mutual is because they have some of the weakest policies. They basically insure almost all major oil and gas expansion without any kind of exclusions. They don't have any type of free, prior, and informed consent policies when working with Indigenous communities. They have literally ignored dozens of letters that different communities have sent them to meet with them about their internationally protected human rights. So Liberty Mutual is like very much the worst of the worst. They're some of the major insurers that are passing along the rising costs of climate disasters to families while simultaneously providing oil and gas insurance. And then Chubb, it's been pretty amazing to see the Chubb campaign take shape because Chubb is very much not a household name. You probably have not heard of them unless you've been paying attention to RAN. But Chubb was one of the first major insurers to move on coal after pressure. Basically, we see that they can be a leader in the insurance industry. They just recently released the first U.S. major insurer to release any type of oil and gas exclusion policies. It's really got a long way to go. It's like mediocre policy, but it means that it could create an entire ripple effect across the U.S. insurance industry. And so we really see that they could be a leader if they actually received more pressure from our supporters and from us. They ruled out drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. They've ruled out insurance for really methane intensive extraction, but they still haven't ruled out all of the expansion that is in midstream. So that's like LNG pipelines, a lot of the major facilities. So we're pressuring them right now because we know if they move, the whole industry will move. And so often RAN uses this campaign strategy of leaders and laggards, right? So Chubb could be a leader. And so that's why we're pressuring on them. Liberty is a complete laggard. They're doing nothing. And so we have to pressure them. And so hopefully that means that it will move all of the people that are in the middle of that U.S. insurance industry to have stronger environmental and social governance policies.
You mentioned pressure an awful lot. Can you tell us what that pressure looks like? Is there like maybe a favorite protest or action that really you felt inspired by?
Yeah, so you can picture yourself in New York City. You are walking down the street, you hear some shouting, and you're like, what is that? What is that 30-foot strange looking oil derrick doing here outside of this fancy apartment? And that's RAN. We are outside of Evan Greenberg's apartment. We are shouting from the street and we can see little heads poking over the windows looking down at us from inside of this really, really ritzy apartment in New York because we have taken it directly to his doorstep. Evan Greenberg, the CEO of Chubb's apartment. We were working with frontline communities that were impacted by the North Brooklyn pipeline, as well as a number of different communities impacted by oil and gas expansion in Brazil, and brought those folks together in order to protest. We need to be taking this to the front steps of these insurance CEOs' houses because the oil and gas expansion that's happening in communities is happening right next door to people that are living through the impacts on their air, on their water, and on their lives every day. And so at RAN decide to make protest personal for the folks that are making decisions at these corporations.
You have insurance companies that are insuring large corporations and fossil fuel extraction projects, and these same companies are also providing insurance policies on people's homes and lives, and are they leaning one way or the other?
You mean they providing insurance for the oil and gas industry while abandoning communities? Yes, they are.
Exactly. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, these same companies are providing insurance for oil and gas while literally ruling out insurance for families that are just looking for house insurance. In the Gulf South, especially, we're seeing this. I was on the phone with someone this week that talked about having to switch insurers 3 times this last calendar year, and he is having to pay $1,000 per month more than he was last year in order to get insurance because of the hurricane prone area that he's living in. Guess who made it hurricane prone, right? You have these oil and gas facilities that are just getting all of this insurance and financing while everyday people are not able to afford their bills, and they're leaving areas that they've lived in for generations because they can't afford to stay there. He literally lives right down the street from an LNG facility that has no problem getting insurance. And so the risk around this hurricane and flooding is being applied when they're looking at homeowner insurance, but they're refusing to walk away from natural gas expansion.
And I understand that you all are putting out a new report soon, next week maybe. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're putting out a new report next week that is the Insure Our Future scorecard. And so the reason why we do like scorecard reports is a way to make insurers rank them against themselves, right? So if you're the top oil and gas insurer in the world, that's got to be really embarrassing when you're talking to the rest of your colleagues that are like, wow, you haven't even ruled out coal. Like, are you kidding me? And so we put out these reports as a way to be able to make the insurance industry actually self-reflect and be able to race towards having stronger oil and gas policies. And so specifically this report, we're talking a lot about that dynamic that I was just talking about around affordability. Like, what are these insurers doing? They're leaving communities while continuing to insure oil and gas. And so that's what the US report is really focused on. And then the global report is ranking all of the global insurers. So there's like 30 of them. And what we're doing is measuring which ones actually have any meaningful climate policies in place. The worst part of this report, I think, is that no major US insurer came out with a free, prior, and informed consent policy this year, which is just absolutely absurd. Most major banks have free, prior, and informed consent policies as a minimum, but basically all of these insurers are completely ignoring human rights and continuing to expand fossil fuels without even having to meet with the communities that they're impacting.
Well, thanks so much for all your hard work, Mary. I feel like y'all are making a lot of positive change in the world, so thanks so much for all that you're doing.
Thanks so much for having me on here, Jake.
As always, a big thanks to Mary for all their hard work ensuring that we have a more just future. If you'd like to get more involved in taking action or getting more information, head on over to our webpage at ran.org. That's RAN.org, where you can join us in using people power to challenge business as usual. And why would you want to do that? Because we win.